Hello again, everybody, and welcome to my YouTube channel again. And I have to say, I've got a real treat in store for you today. We have got a man who is a proper diving legend here with us, Richie Kohler. He's a filmmaker, he's an author, and he's done as many dives on Britannic as anybody else. Maybe just even Kovac, I know, is your good buddy. You've done about the same, but you know there isn't much you don't know about Britannic. And today you're going to share with us some of the fantastic work that you've been doing over the last couple of years, and obviously all the great artifacts that you've recovered. So, good evening, Richie.
Good evening, Dom, and thank you for having me. By the way, I love your Deep Wreck Diver site and your podcasts. I am actually one of your biggest fans. So if you check, you'll actually see I get a little badge or something from watching all your videos and stuff. So yeah, I'm actually a Dom stalker. So there you go.
Oh wow! Well, I'll tell you what. I love you even more for that, Richie. So thank you very much. So give us a bit of context then. So Britannic, the last few years, tell us about it.
Well, like many other people, I found my way to Britannic because of Titanic. Everybody always knows the story of Titanic, but for us in the deep wreck diving world, Britannic, I believe, has become like a Mount Everest. It is a technical dive that holds, only few wrecks compare in size, in magnitude, in difficulty to access, not necessarily difficulty of the dive. Dom, a lot of our peers are making 120, 150-meter dives on a somewhat regular basis. I think it becomes an expedition because of the logistics behind it, about getting your kit, getting yourself there, getting the weather and the tide and the current to all come into play so you can get this magnificent dive. There's the HMS Victoria off Lebanon. That's an epic dive. But Britannic, I think, is a little more accessible than the Victoria for no other fact that you don't have to go to Lebanon with everything that means. And I think that although the Victoria is an incredible dive of technical magnitude, it doesn't have the same gravitas as Britannic. When you dive Britannic and you look at her, you see Titanic because they are twin sisters. Their outline, their shape, the hallways, the doors, the portholes, everything's identical. The mission was different. The cause of sinking was different. And obviously, the diving conditions between Titanic and Britannic are remarkably different. But for the technical sport diver like myself, in 2006, when I first made my first dives on Britannic, I fell in love with it. And it has haunted me. It has captured my obsession. For next year, be 20 years that Evan and I have been going back. I wouldn't say every year, but I believe now it's something like 12 expeditions in 20 years. So that sounds pretty obsessed, to me. We went there working for television, and we've stayed on for ourselves. When we went there, we wanted to answer questions about Titanic and using Britannic as a perfect scale model to answer those questions. And then we also wanted to answer questions about why Britannic sank so quickly. That process took a few years. Actually, it took us almost a decade before we actually had photographic evidence of why Britannic sank quicker, 3 times faster than Titanic. And at the end of that, I found out that I just love this wreck. I mean, as our viewers are seeing some of the video playing in the background, you're just getting a taste of a shipwreck that stands 30 meters off the seafloor, is primarily intact except for a crack right up at the bow, is 900 feet long, and with the exception of the items that we removed and that a few things, a handful of things that Jacques Cousteau removed, everything is there. So when you visit this wreck, you are really looking at a time capsule of a moment in time captured of an iconic ship in gin clear water that just has wow factor written all over it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's really clear from the video that we're watching now. The fact is I can't really think of any wrecks of this size where you can do what you're currently doing, swimming through. I mean, there's plenty of wrecks of this, similar kind of size. Lusitania, Justitia. They're all broadly the same size, but there isn't any of them where you can do this. You can do this with them. They're all in bits.
No, and this, even getting to do this was 10 to 15 years in the making. Simon Mills, who is the owner of the wreck, had to work diligently, hand in hand with the Ministry of Antiquities, the effort, if you will, trying to get all the stars to align so that we would have an opportunity to go inside the wreck and document areas that had never been seen before. And I'm not just talking about like in the late 90s, a series of open circuit divers went inside and did film some of the areas that we're looking at. But again, open circuit with all the limitations of that. Here we are doing 40, 50-minute bottom times at a maximum of 120 meters and swimming in some cases close to 70 meters. And in one case, at least 100 meters inside the wreck, horizontal travel, because of watertight bulkheads and the such that there's only limited access in. So, these are some incredible shipwreck penetrations that we did that I'm really proud of the team. I'm proud of every aspect of the planning phase. When we do these type of expeditions, it's not one leader. We are a team, and in that we divide the responsibility. We divide all of the chores. We also divide and try to share what it is that everybody would really like to do or see. So it is the essence of a team. There is no I in team, as they say. I've been fortunate in that I've been part of the leadership on these programs, mostly because of my experience. But that being said, I listen to my people, and my people come to me and they're like, hey, we should go here. Hey, we should do this. And quite often they know or see something that I don't. So the ability to, I think, have an open mind and allow everybody a voice in what we're doing really has lent itself to the success of the project.
It's really interesting that you talk about the success of the project, because I think this year you've had some particular successes, haven't you? And and if you're going to say one thing to capture that, it has got to be this, hasn't it? It's the the bell off the crow's nest. And how does it feel, Richie, to be sat there like that with that in front of you?
We have to always give everyone their credit. The bell was located in 2019 by two divers, the late Joseph Maserani of the DV Tenacious and his dive buddy Ricky Simon. They located the bell and brought the location to Simon Mills's attention back in 2019, and I think that really lit a fire under Simon. But think about it, 2019. It took 6 years before we were able to actually be allowed to recover it. And so the bell, to many people, and to you and I as hardcore wreckers, the bell is definitely a fantastic object to find. In the case of an unknown shipwreck, it could be the identifying feature, literally the name of the ship on it. Some people will be romantic and say, well, the bell is the voice of the ship, the soul of the ship. I think for us in this project, the bell was absolutely one of the lead things we had to safely recover. It was definitely the heaviest. That bell is 70 kilos, so it's a big, heavy bell. It was buried in shell hash, and it was covered with these really sharp oyster shells, so making it dangerous for the divers at depth to handle. Um, so it was work. It was work at 120 meters. But then if you ask me, well, what was the most fun to do? Well, when Simon Mills would lay out the deck plans of Britannic and go, when she was designed as a passenger liner, these were the storage cabinets for the crystal, and this was where the silverware would be, and this is where the expensive china would be. That's what Richie Kohler likes to do, is to get inside the ship, change deck levels, swim down hallways, zigzag and weave myself into the wreck, and then shine my light in a corner. And I know you know what I'm talking about, and get that big glow back of a pile of crockery or silverware or whatever the goal was. And then, obviously one of the mandates by the effort, the archaeologists we were working with, was every item that we were to recover had to be documented fully in situ. We had to film it 3 ways to Sunday. Many objects, like the bell, had to have photogrammetry done in situ, meaning we had to really go down there with what's called a stadia, or a measuring device, so we could scale the video and still photography. So every object that was recovered was both still and videoed in place before it was ever touched. And as you can see, some of these bits and pieces are absolutely stunning. They're in pristine condition because of how deep inside the shipwreck they were. I am incredibly proud of my team. There were cases where I was assigning or suggesting people go to a particular area and get some of the objects, and my team was like, no, we can do this, we should get that. And again, it is a bit of a democracy in that I was outvoted. And one of those objects, believe it or not, is what you're looking at right now. It's that lantern. They wanted to get this lantern, and I was like, you know what? It looks like it's fused in. I don't think we should bother with the lamp blocker, but they said, no, this is a beautiful, pristine lantern. It's in perfect condition. How could we leave this? And so when the archaeologists knew that we could recover it without having any impact to the shipwreck, I really want to take a minute to talk about that. One of the mandates given to us by the effort was that we were not to use tools. We were not to use force. Any object that we were to recover had to be free and loose. We were not to negatively impact or create any bare metal or do anything to forcibly remove an object. So crockery, fallen bits of porcelain, and when I say bits of porcelain, we did recover a sink. We recovered a couple of things that haven't made it to the media yet. I'm not at liberty to talk about some of the things, but as you're looking at that image right there, that is one of the most beautiful things I've seen inside the wreck, which is the engine room maker's plate. And so that's about 150 feet inside the engine room. It is a true penetration dive to get to it. And it is sitting there mounted between those two cage lamps. And you can, if you zoom in on it, you can see it says Harlan and Wolff, Belfast engineers. It's just an incredible piece, but we're not allowed to touch that one because it's in perfect condition and perfectly mounted. So they do not want us at this point to remove it because that would be a negative impact to the shipwreck.
And big hand of respect to them for saying that, and big hand of respect to you for kind of doing it. I mean, I have to say, I still think that should be on the surface, but that's just me, because at some point that is all going to collapse, and that's never going to be seen again, is it? But there you go.
We understand, and that is why these videos, these photographs are, legacy. They will live on. These photographs and video will live on. You and I both know one day one expedition is going to go out to set the hook on Britannic, and they're going to come back with the tragic news. They're going to say she's collapsed. It happens to every shipwreck, Dom. You know it. I'm pretty sure most of our viewers know it. And it'll be a sad day. It'll be a very, very sad day, because when you think about it, how many over 105-year-old shipwrecks are still intact with their engine rooms intact, their engines still bolted to the floor, catwalks in place. You can go into the boiler rooms and swim through the boilers and be surrounded by intact catwalks and ladders, staircases. Read the gauges, literally read the gauge faces, the instructions for different pieces of machinery, and of course that will one day end, and it'll probably, I think, be like a house of cards. I think that once either the boiler breaks free or the engine, I apologize for that, or the engine breaks free, it's going to impact the wreck in such a way that it'll be unrecoverable, meaning that it's going to force the upper decks to fold to the seafloor, and then she's going to cave in and look like every other shipwreck we dive.
Absolutely, it's a guarantee. It's not an if; it's just a when. And hopefully, though, you've got a few more years left diving it, a few more years left exploring it. It's on my to-do list as well. I'm going to get out there at some point and do it. Now,
let me know. I'd love to go with you. To be honest with you, I mean, I'm 63, Dom, so I've got just a couple of years left in my deep diving. I'm going to back it down to probably 70 and 80 meters. Just get a little more ride out of it if I can. But yeah, there's been such a long period of time building towards this recovery, and again, I've got to give Simon Mills his props. He is the owner of the ship. The Greeks respect him as the owner of the Letter of Marque. That's his book that he put together for this project. As a matter of fact, all of the underwater and interior photographs in his book were put together by our team, and over the last 5 years. So, if you enjoy some of the video you're looking at and you want to know a little bit more about the stories behind them and some of the still images, it's obviously in the book. Shameless plug for him. I don't get a dime out of it, but I am proud, and I'm proud of my team for all of the hard work they did to put those photographs in. And I also want to give a nod out to that incredible image, which is a drawing or a painting done by a gentleman named William Barney. He's an incredible artist, and he's done a lot of not only beautiful paintings like this, but he's done all of our team shirts, and he's a member of the team. Even though he's not a wreck diver, he is a big fan of Britannic, and he just does incredible work. And that was his illustration showing Evan and I, and the third diver would be Richie Stevenson, because we're the only 3 people that have ever been in the boiler rooms as far as that. There was, I think, one other person named John Chatterton who actually got into the boiler rooms with us as well. So technically only 4 people have ever been traveling. And it's not a pretty, by the way, it makes a pretty book cover, but it ain't a pretty dive. Boiler rooms are just not as sexy as engine rooms, I got to tell you. It's a tight, nasty spot, very easily to stir up. And the only reason we were going in there was to answer questions about whether or not the watertight doors were open or closed. But getting back to the big picture of the entire project, and giving Simon his nod, he worked hard to have the Greeks, the Greek effort, allow the recovery. My hope is that objects that we've recovered or continue to recover, because we are scheduled to return in 26 and do a little bit more recovery, because there's a couple of things still on the list that have to be picked up. That some of these objects will return to Britannic's home port. I really would love to see some of these objects in the Titanic Belfast Museum, because I really believe that for us, who are really the people who appreciate shipwrecks and the stories that they tell and the human connection, it would be wonderful for people to go to the Titanic Museum and be able to see objects from Britannic and then learn about Britannic's story.
Absolutely. It's that would be absolutely awesome if that does happen. And big hand to everybody who's trying to make that happen. I just want to take you back a bit, Richie, which is one of the things I think people are going to be really interested in is the diving aspect of diving Britannic. You've covered the history, you've covered the artifacts, and it's fantastic. But you mentioned just now going inside it, and one of the things I've got is your dive profile here, which I think shows that really clearly. This is from I think one of your dives this year.
Yep. So what we're looking at on that dive is that, if you recall, I mentioned that the shipwreck lays or rises 30 meters off the seafloor. So when you descend down, as you see us descending down, we hit the top of the wreck at roughly 90 meters, 95 meters. And then we travel laterally along the wreck until we get to, in this particular case, I believe on this dive, we were going to be going into an area called the Turkish Baths. So what you're looking at now is I get into the wreck and I descend down into the wreck to the far side. So I'm basically going down to almost roughly 110 meters inside the wreck, looking for access to this door that would take us into a steam room called the Turkish Baths, basically the cooling room, which was a very attractive room with these beautiful hand-painted tiles and furniture, padded furniture. And it was just a very opulent room. And one of the big questions that a lot of people, historians and other experts regarding the White Star Line and the Olympians, as the Titanic, Olympic, and Britannic were known, wanted to know, was there some of these opulent things on board this ship? So as you can see in that dive profile, we swam along the hull at 300 feet, dropped down to almost 400 feet, then found the room, filmed the room, and now we have to reverse that and come back up. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but when you think about the big scale of these dives and the magnitude, we're talking about 30-meter dips and changes in your dive profile. 30 meters. That's pretty big, I don't care who you are. It's like if you're a sport diver visiting Britannic for the first time, I would bet dollars to donuts that the operator, Giannis, who owns Kia Divers, is going to say, hey, look, it's your first dive, go down, swim along the promenade at 100 meters, and that's your first day of diving. And then you think about it, as your skill and experience on the wreck grow, well, then you could start expanding that. But think about what the extra 30 meters of depth is going to add to your decompression profile. You know what I'm saying? So like you could stay up here at 90, 95 meters, or you can go down to 120 meters. So where do you want to be?
That's a big difference. That's a difference between a 90-meter dive and a 120 meters dive. That's really significant, especially when you're inside the wreck. And because there's also that small matter of trying to find your way back out again as well, isn't there? And then even when you've got back out, you need to find your way back to the shot line as well, presumably.
Well, that's a great segue now into like looking at this dive. when my primary dive partner, and don't get me wrong, I dive with a lot of different people through the years on Britannic, but my primary dive buddy and partner has always been Evan Kovacs. And one of the things that we have an understanding is Evan is the consummate professional underwater photographer. That's his job. That's what he does. We first met, and he was working, off Broadway, and then he started working with me on the History Channel. And the next thing you know, he's the director of photography, and he has obviously a very incredible filming platform. So the point of that is that Evan's the A camera. So what that means is he goes in first. My job as his dive buddy is to bring the reel. So Evan, and people have often looked at our videos and be like, "Hey, how are you doing this with no line?" It's like, no, actually, there's a line, and he's not alone. I'm laying back behind him, and I am running the reel. And so whenever he's done filming, obviously, if I get it, there are shots where Evan will put me in the shot because they like to see a diver in the shot. But majority of the work that we were doing for the Effort and for Simon Mills was clean photos or video of the wreck without a diver in it for scale, without anybody stirring up the visibility. So in the case of the Turkish bath, when we got to the doorway, I laid back. Evan drops through the door, and then I come through the doorway holding onto a reel and a light, being a what we refer to as a breadcrumb or a lighthouse. So Evan could go into the room, circle around the room, video it, and then I am at the doorway. No matter how bad he disturbed the visibility, I am at the doorway with a light, with a reel, and able to help him get back through the door. When we exit the wreck, I go to the side, and Evan follows the reel or the line out, and then I reel out behind him. And so that has been our way of operating on Britannic. There have been times where we lay line and we leave line for a while, but we try to always take it back out and not pollute the wreck, which some people would say that is what we're doing, or constitute a, I'm trying to think of the right way to,
Hazard, maybe, or if you're going back in there, or
well, you don't, no one else is supposed to go inside the wreck. And what I mean by that is we have a permit to go in. And when people go to Britannic, they're told by the operator they're not allowed to go inside the wreck at all. They can go into the promenade because there's no overhead. So you're just swimming in a valley. That's okay. But you're not allowed to penetrate into the wreck. And so we remove our lines so that they don't constitute a, hey, look, there's a line. Let me follow it. And,
enticement.
that's one of the things. Yeah. And one of the other things is that you always have to have a guide when you're diving with Kia divers or any of the operators that may take divers out to Britannic. One of the mandates is for every 3 divers, the 4th diver has to be an approved guide who's going to make sure that everybody's playing by the rules. So, again, we're really, really lucky. We're fortunate, and we recognize that we are, having been given this opportunity by Simon and by the Effort to do this documentation, to do these recoveries. It's really a nice way of using a lifetime of shipwreck diving experience, a lifetime of recovering objects from shipwrecks, and now doing it so that it benefits a museum, it benefits everyone. Because the objects that we have recovered and will continue to recover are slated to go into the brand new Maritime Museum that'll be in Athens, scheduled to open next year. So that means that people that aren't scuba divers can go and see these objects and learn more about the story of Britannic.
And that's that is fantastic. So I do think that is bringing stuff up so people can see it is absolutely fantastic. One of the things I just want to drag you back to, Richie, because I know people watching it will be interested in is the amount of decompression and the deco, strategies and everything. I mean, we can see here, from this thing that you get into your first stop about the 42-minute mark in this dive, and then you're getting out of the water. Well, basically 3 hours later on this dive, and I know you've done a lot longer ones than these. And we've got some pictures of what it is like to be decompressing on Britannic. So
So
please tell us about that.
the first rule of Richie Kohler talking about decompression diving is don't follow me. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. That's the first thing. All right. I don't know how I've gotten away with it for so long because I don't know what I'm doing, but somehow I've gotten lucky. Um, the reality is it's not called decompression. It's called decompression theory. So recognize that you can do everything correctly on your computer and still get bent. I have to say that. So, don't follow me. Don't look at my decompression profiles. Don't look at my gas switches, my algorithm, and or any of my information, and say, "Oh, this is what I want to do." It's an incredibly personal choice, and I think you know what I'm talking about when I say I dive day to day by how I feel. So if I'm coming up, Dom, and I don't feel it, I'm going to hang longer. Some days I'm feeling it and I might get a little more aggressive on my decompression. So some of the things that I have been known to do on big dives like Britannic or 120-meter dives is that I will do a gas switch in my computers to tell my computer that I'm using a diluent gas that has a lower helium content, and that will, in some ways, accelerate my decompression. Other times, in other dives, I will tell my computer I have, let's say, 850, but the reality is I've got 885. So I'm lying to my computer about the percentage of helium. Again, don't follow me. I'm just telling you what I do. There's a lot of people out there that are doing similar things to this because we found out a long time ago that for some reason the computer algorithms are penalizing us heavily for the amount of helium. That being said, if you listen to me and get bent, it's on you because I said I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So don't do what I'm doing.
Yeah. No, that,
So that is why, if you look at my computer algorithm that you displayed, how we're getting out of the water, people are saying to me, "You did a dive back in 2006, and you did the same dive, and you were decompressing for 5 hours. Now all of a sudden you're decompressing for 3 hours. What are you doing different?" Well, I just alluded to a few of the things that we're doing that are differently. Um, One of the things that's really important is to follow the bell curve. One of the things that I really love about the AP unit and the Evolution diving computer was that you can follow your ceiling. You weren't mandated to doing what you're looking at here, which is a stepped profile. Um, when I was diving the AP, I'd have a true bell curve because I was coming up like almost every minute I'd be coming up a few inches. And so here, when I'm using the shear water, you're noticing more of a stepped profile, especially as we get shallower. You're seeing more and more of these steps. So I could bend my shear water. It'll still give me decompression information. I don't like bending a computer because if you bend in my mind, if I bend my computer and then I get bent, well, who's the fool?
no, no.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't mind lying to it as long as it doesn't get bent. And then I get out of the water and I'm feeling good. I'm like, hey, that worked. So, and by the way, I didn't invent this. I'm not going to throw my friends under the bus, but some really experienced guys showed me the way, and I've been following them and playing with it. And it's been, knock wood, working for me. Once we get to those shallower stops, you were showing some of the Starfish Enterprise decompression station that we borrowed from Starfish Enterprise back in the day. It was brought out in 2006 by Walt Spencer and Lee Bishop, and we've been using it ever since. It just makes, as you know, a really comfortable way for a number of divers to do their decompression stages, all relaxed, clipped in if there is, as there often is, a bit of a tide or current pushing the divers around. The other part of it that's important of dives of this magnitude is that there's pre-staged emergency gas on the station, which means that if a diver was to come up and be on an open circuit bailout or a backup bailout rebreather situation and was in need of additional gas, yes, we would signal the top side that we have a protocol for this, but there's already gas in the water. So that really helps put people's mind at ease. If you wanted to take an air or oxygen or nitrox break, the gas is there. A lot of times we like to hydrate or have a snack on some of the longer hangs. So the support team will bring down Camelbacks or juice bottles or juice bags, sometimes grapes, different, Haribo gummy bears, all kinds of different things to keep your energy level up, keep you hydrated. Sometimes just moving your jaw, getting off the loop a little bit, throwing something in your mouth, getting on an open circuit reg for a little bit, drinking, chewing, getting your jaw moving. Takes you know what it's like to be in the water 4 hours with a mouthpiece, and sometimes just that little bit of moving your jaw around, even if you don't want to eat, just the process of chewing actually is kind of beneficial to you. So those are some of the things that we do. And of course, as you've mentioned on previous podcasts, there's people that watch videos or listen to music. Me personally, I tried that for a while, but I just really like to meditate. A lot of times I think about the dive. I think about the next dive. I think about what I'm going to have for dinner. I wonder if I left the lights on at home. All kinds of stuff goes through my mind on decompression.
It's fascinating talking to you, Richie. But of course, I think we need to kind of bring it to a close, and probably the best way to bring it to a close is with some more of this fantastic video from inside the wreck. And maybe your kind of thoughts. You've covered a little bit on what's coming next, but can you give us a bit of a tease? Titivators. What's 26 got in store for you?
Well, where you're looking at this is the grand staircase. The video that I gave you is video that has been seen before. One of the mandates by Simon Mills is that we're not showing any areas that haven't been seen, because he's kind of hoping that a major production company would want to, have an expose or, be able to show a lot of these images and video for the first time. So what I'm showing you right here is an area that has been often filmed before. And by the way, I'm not the primary cameraman here. My camera is actually hanging between my legs as I'm tying off a reel or getting the strobes hooked up and stuff like that. So Evan is the alpha camera. So this is just my GoPro for Richie Kohler, fun film. So this area is the grand staircase. And for a lot of our work in 23, 24, and 25, we focused on this area because it gave us access to the grand dining room, the first class larder or pantries, where we were hoping to find silverware, crystal, and fine expensive crockery. And as you can imagine, being the grand staircase, it gives you access from the top of the ship all the way to the bottom of the ship. And at the very bottom of this staircase is where we found the Turkish baths. Some of the footage that you're looking at is just me, exploration footage in the area around the grand staircase. You can see some of the beds or the bunks for the injured sailors. You can see and wounded soldiers, excuse me. You can see the remains of the ceiling and different plumbing fixtures and the what have you. One of the things that George Vandross said when he came up from his dive, which I think is kind of funny and yet true. He says, "I can't believe it's bigger on the inside." And that, as funny as that sounds, it's actually kind of true because, you go into a shipwreck thinking it's going to be tight and confined, and you get inside Britannic and it's expansive. The Britannic did not have the interior compartments of all of these cabins because it was opened up for wards for wounded soldiers. So there was very few interior partitions, and you can imagine that from port to starboard, she would just have been rows and rows and rows of beds. And so you get in there and it's just bang open. And then you have to travel for a period of time to get to an area where there'll be some other partitions and cabinetry and the such. So what you're looking at here is just a huge open area of what at one point was intended to be a dining room, but on Britannic wound up being a berthing area.
And so next year, your plan is to go back and do some more in these kind of areas, or?
There's the aspirations to go back and try to get inside the swimming pool to see if it's still filled with water, and no, to actually see if it was as the swimming area on board Titanic was absolutely gorgeous and opulent with marble and beautiful tiles and independent changing stalls. And so they're really curious if Britannic mimicked that, if she had a different type of design. So these are the kind of things that harken back to Britannic's pedigree as a premier ocean liner. And so those are the kind of things that we want to do and image. We also are continuing to image many of the objects that directly relate to her mission as a hospital ship. Gurneys, wheelchairs, medical supplies, x-ray machine. Can you believe there was an x-ray machine on board Britannic? But there was. There was a surgical ward. There was a morgue. Obviously this is a pretty big task because each dive only gets about 30 minutes. You're diving always in a pair, always in a minimum of a team of two. And, weather permitting, you may only get 7 days of diving, 9 days of diving per 2-week period. This is actually one of my favorite little pathways. This is Scotland Road. Evan Kovacs and I were the first two people to ever go down this way and get into the engine room. And it still is one of my favorite dives. And it shows you the level of intact corridors, doorways. Yes, you could see where on Scotland Road there was a wooden floor. You could see the caulking in between the only thing left is the caulking. That's none of the wood. That's just the caulk that was in and the silt sitting on the caulking in between it. And as you swim through, you see all of these independent little doorways leading into engineer staterooms, engineer washrooms, because this was a service corridor that leads directly to the turbine room and to the engine room. And one of my favorite areas. Actually, I like the whole wreck. I can't lie. But this was one of my favorites because we knew we were the very first people to ever go in. As a matter of fact, if you look, there's you can see. I think on I'm not sure in this image if there is a line on the right side or I'm laying the line. I think Evan's in front of me, and I am laying the line behind Evan. So this is my GoPro footage behind Evan. And that was an epic dive. And we found things like this, which we thought were bedding mattresses, but they're actually insulation for the engines. And some really cool footage you got here. If I say so myself.
No, it's absolutely insane. And to think that this is 100 or 110 meters deep or whatever it is.
Yeah, you do
You know,
about 110 meters right here. 110
yeah,
meters inside the wreck.
yeah. I mean, that is, yeah, it's incredible. It's mind-bogglingly amazing. So there you go. I've given you a bit of a, a bit of a shout there. But yeah, no, it is to do this is just is incredible. And actually, this is we are going to finish with this shot because I know this is one of your favourite bits, Richie, as well.
So that's Evan's camera. You can see the difference between a real camera and my GoPro. But that's me swimming out of the fourth funnel. And, it's just, one of those things when you swim out into the blue, you're happy. Yeah, you've seen an image, some great stuff, but the dive's over and now the 3 to 4 hour deco begins. So.
Yeah, and that's the cost of doing this kind of diving, isn't it? And we know
Yeah.
we both know that price so well. We've done it so many times, but it's you know what when you never remember the deco. What you remember is you remember going down Scotland Road. You coming out of the fourth funnel. You remember seeing the Turkish steam baths. All that kind of stuff. That's what you remember, isn't it? And I
Yep.
mean, it's been fantastic, Richie. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this incredible foot and these
Well,
incredible
thank you,
tales with
man.
us.
And you know what? If you don't share it. Why are you doing it?
Yeah,
If you're not willing to inspire, years ago I used to work for television, and somebody once said to me, "What is it that you hope to achieve?" And I go, at the end of the day, if you can inspire someone, you're winning. If you can educate someone, well, that's pretty good too. And at the end of that, if you can entertain them, well, then that's the trifecta. Okay. So if you can educate, inspire, and entertain, it's the win. So I love to think that I've got something to offer. I've been diving a couple of years now. I love shipwrecks. I love the stories of shipwrecks. I love the people stories of shipwrecks. And what better way than deep wreck diver and people like you to share those stories and get other people excited about it.
absolute certain. And on that note, Richie, I'm going to draw it to a close. It's been absolutely amazing. Educate, inspire, and entertain. I'm absolutely going to take that one away. Cheers, mate. Thank you very much.
Cheers, brother.